Customer service has come a long way in the last few centuries. Picture this, it's the year 1710, and you're riding along in your horse-drawn carriage when suddenly the wheel hits a deep hole in the road and snaps. You are stranded, feeling stuck, and wondering, what on earth am I going to do to get this fixed? So you've got to unhitch your horse, leave your carriage on the side of the road, and ride into town all the way back to see the blacksmith and hopefully argue your case face to face. And forget about any money back guarantees. Those weren't even a thing back then. Now let's fast forward to the Industrial Revolution. In the 18th century, businesses went from producing things by hand to using machinery. So at that time, they cared more about mass production than they cared about making customers happy. Customer service wasn't really a priority. And then finally, in 1876, the phone was invented. Suddenly, people could call up companies to complain or to ask questions without having to leave their house. That was groundbreaking for communication. And almost a century later, the internet was born, and that exploded into a global phenomenon in the 1990s. That completely revolutionized the way that we communicate with each other. The internet made customers more informed, more connected, and not afraid to speak their minds. And nowadays, customers can research your organization, they can compare you to competitors, and they can share their experiences with the world at the click of a button, and they do it. So now we live in the age of artificial intelligence, social media, and online reviews. One single interaction with a customer can go viral in seconds and either make or break your company's reputation. And research shows that 1/3 of a company's reputation comes down to customer service. So that's a lot of responsibility on your plate. All of this has raised the bar for what customers expect from customer service. They want fast, easy, and personalized service. And they want it now. They don't want to wait on hold for hours or to deal with a grumpy customer service rep. They want their problems solved quickly, and they want to be treated with empathy and respect. And that's why average customer service quality is no longer sufficient. To stand out from the crowd and to win their customers' hearts and wallets, businesses need to go above and beyond for their customers. But here's something really surprising. 80% of companies think that they deliver superior customer service, but only 8% of customers agree. Now, that's a huge disconnect between what companies think and what customers expect, don't you think? What's even more shocking is that 60% of customers can't even recall the last time a business exceeded their expectations. Now, that's definitely something to think about. This is why forward-thinking companies are investing in customer service training like this one, because they realize the power of customer service. Now they understand that exceptional service is no longer a nice to have, it's essential to stay competitive and successful. So as you can see, customer service has evolved a lot from the days of horse-drawn carriages. It's been quite a wild ride, pun not intended. But one thing remains constant is the human touch. No matter how fancy our technology gets, customers still crave that personal connection and empathy that only a fellow human can provide. And that's why we're here. I'm so excited to dive in and share with you all the best practices, strategies, and tricks that will help you provide exceptional service for your customers. And this way, you'll be able to meet the standards of our modern day society. When you hear the phrase customer service, what's the first thing that comes to mind? The truth is, customer service encompasses far more than many people realize. So it's time to challenge two big misconceptions surrounding customer service. And we're going to explore what it truly means. So myth number one, and this is one of the biggest of all, is that customer service is the job of the customer service department. Have you heard this before? Well, this is false. In reality, customer service is everyone's job. Every employee, regardless of their position, has an impact on the customer's experience. And it's not just the people who answer phones or people who work at the front desk. It's literally everyone, from the CEO to the newest hire. Here's why. Every single thing that you do impacts the customer experience in some way. So when you are designing products, you need to keep the customer in mind. Or when you're marketing, or selling, you need to communicate clearly and set realistic expectations for the customer. Also, when you are hiring and training employees, you need to look for people who are all about putting the customer first. It's like a big chain reaction. If one link is weak, it can affect the whole customer experience. And studies show that companies that embrace customer service as a company-wide philosophy see a 10 to 15 increase in revenue and up to 20% reduction in customer churn or lost customers. So when everyone works together and puts the customer at the center of everything that they do, then the whole organization sees great results. Now, moving on to myth number 2, and that's customer service is all about serving external customers. This is false as well. Customer service can be both external and internal. Internal customer service is often overlooked, but it's extremely important for the success of any organization. But what exactly is internal customer service, you may ask? Well, simply put, it's the service that you provide to the people within your organization. Every time you help a coworker or answer a question from another department or collaborate with someone on a project, you are practicing internal customer service. And this is usually the part where students say, wow, I've never thought about it that way before, but it is true. So this means that you need to treat your coworkers and other stakeholders as if they were your customers. And you need to offer them the same level of service, respect, and care that you would give to external customers. I encourage you to think of internal customer service as the glue that holds the company together. If the glue isn't strong, well, what happens? All the pieces fall apart. So if your team is not on the same page, or if there's team tension, conflicts, lack of support between departments, it's very hard to work together and to provide great service for your external customers as a result. However, if the team works together as a cohesive unit and motivates each other, then morale and motivation are strong. So in that case, you can achieve much better results and your external customers will also feel the impact. Keep in mind that all the strategies that we teach in this course can be applied to internal customer service as well. They're the same soft skills: empathy, active listening, effective communication, problem solving, and conflict resolution. So it is important to remember that customer service is everyone's job, and your internal customers deserve the same level of attention and support as your external customers. And when you and your team all commit to providing excellent service for each other, everybody wins. To truly enjoy your job and give your best, it's important to find your intrinsic motivation. That's the inner drive that makes you feel good about what you do. Intrinsic motivation comes from within, unlike extrinsic motivation that relies on external rewards or praise. So for instance, playing the guitar because it brings you joy and helps you express yourself is intrinsic motivation, while practicing because you want to impress somebody with your skills or maybe to get a scholarship to attend music school, that would be considered extrinsic motivation. In customer service, intrinsic motivation helps you find fulfillment and enjoyment in your work. People are intrinsically motivated by different things. Some people love helping others and making a positive difference in others' lives. Other people enjoy being part of a team and creating a supportive workspace. When you discover what intrinsically motivates you, whether it's solving problems, being creative, connecting with people, or maybe staying true to your values, you're going to feel more motivated and more excited to do your work. So tapping into your inner drive brings meaning and energy to your job, and that allows you to bring your best to every customer. So to keep your intrinsic motivation strong, I suggest you try the following tips. You can connect your work to your personal values. Ask yourself, what do I truly care about, and how does my job help me show these values? Is it honesty, empathy, respect? What are your personal values? Another thing you can do is look for challenges and chances to learn and improve. And there are lots of those in customer service. So when you're facing a challenging situation, you can ask yourself, how can I learn and grow from this situation? And the next step is to celebrate the positive impact that you have on your customers, no matter how small. For example, did you make someone smile? Or did you help them solve a tricky issue? Or go the extra mile to help them? All of those will count. And at the end of the day, you can ask yourself, what specific action did I take today that made a positive impact on my customers? And do more of that. Okay, here's your action plan. Enjoying your work comes down to remembering your big why. So your action plan is to figure out your big why. Think about what drives you to help others, what motivates you to do your job. And when you focus on what lights you up inside, you'll not only impress your organization and your customers with your enthusiasm and your work ethic, but you'll also find more meaning in your work. And as a result, get more satisfaction from your job. Picture this. You're at a social event and you strike up a conversation with a person that you've never met before in your life. Within minutes, you feel like you've known them for years. You feel like you formed a genuine connection and you feel like you really understand each other. Wouldn't that be great if you could create the same feeling for your customers? That sensation of instant rapport? The words you choose, the tone you use, and even the way that you structure your conversation can have a big impact on how your customers perceive you. Let me ask you this. As a customer, would you rather talk to someone who is warm, friendly, and attentive, or someone who's cold and sounds like a robot? Exactly. That's the customer service people want, when someone really listens and connects with you on a personal level. And a big part of that comes down to the language that you use and the overall positive energy you bring to the conversation. That can have a huge impact on how the customer perceives you and how the interaction unfolds. In this module, you will learn how to personalize your approach to build instant trust and rapport with your customers. You'll also learn how to use positive, empathetic language to make customers feel valued. And we'll also cover how to avoid verbal pitfalls that can unintentionally upset or alienate your customers. So by the end of this lesson, you'll have a toolkit of techniques that will help you create more meaningful, collaborative dialogues. So are you ready to get started? Let's dive in. Let's talk about some simple and powerful ways to make your interactions with customers feel more personable. It's a key part of strengthening relationships. So here are 2 techniques that you can try. The first one is using the customer's name and introducing yourself in conversation to make your conversations more personable. And the second technique is using customer data to customize your interactions. So let's dive in. Our names carry a lot of meaning. They are a big part of who we are and how we see ourselves as individuals. So when someone actually remembers and uses our name in conversation, it makes us feel heard and valued as a unique person and not just another face in the crowd. It engages that part of the brain that craves personal recognition and connection. And according to the individual identity theory in psychology, when we see that someone remembers and uses our name, we're far more likely to feel valued and to trust them and to even want to continue that conversation. The same goes for when you use your customer's name. But it is super important to get the pronunciation and the spelling right. It's always better to politely ask how to say or how to spell the name correctly than to accidentally mess it up. Mispronouncing or misspelling someone's name can make them feel overlooked or in some cases even disrespected. So you definitely want to avoid doing that with your customers. But don't stop there. Be sure to introduce yourself as well, so the customer knows exactly who they're talking to and you don't appear as some anonymous representative of the company. So those little touches can make the whole conversation feel so much more personable and friendly. And now the second tip is using customer data. This is another great way to personalize your interactions, and that's by keeping detailed notes of your customers' past interactions and their purchase history and any kind of personal information that they've shared with you. This data is so useful for creating personalized experiences for your customers. In fact, 76% of customers said that they expect a business to remember their purchases and their past conversations and personal information. Of course, it's impossible to remember all of this information in your head, which is why so many companies use CRM or customer relationship management software, which helps them keep track of all of this data. And this makes it easier for sharing insights with your team and keeping your notes really well organized. For example, if you can pick up a conversation right where you last left off, this shows the customer that you respect their time and that you actually remember them as an individual. Or if a customer previously called about an issue, you can use the notes that your colleague took to get up to speed quickly without making the customer repeat themselves over and over again, because let's be honest, nobody likes doing that. So you are showing that you value their time by doing all the research yourself. Also, bringing up little personal details that the customer shared in the past is also a great way to build relationships. If they mentioned that their kid's birthday is coming up, you could say, "Happy birthday to your son. I hope you have a great celebration." Little touches like that can go a long way. Another thing you can do, if you know their purchase history, you can make personalized recommendations to help them. For example, if a customer bought specific products or services in the past, you could potentially suggest some other helpful products that might be of interest to them. So the key is just to consistently document the customer's information and then naturally weave it into conversation. It creates a more personalized, friendly experience that the customer is sure to appreciate. Now, let's recap what we learned with an action plan. So the next time you're communicating with customers, make sure to do the following. Use their correct name and pronunciation to show that you see them as an individual. Remember to get the spelling right. Then introduce yourself so they know who they're talking to. You can also reference any personal details that you have to provide a more customized and more meaningful experience for a customer. These small personalizations help build stronger customer relationships and they make them feel more valued. It's an easy way to make a big impact. The way you phrase things can make a big difference in how customers feel about the interaction. In this lecture, we'll look at 3 effective strategies for using language to create positive customer service experiences. So the first one is using customer-centric language. The second one is using action-focused I and we statements. And the third one is choosing language that demonstrates enthusiasm and positivity. Now, let's look at each one in more detail. First, we have customer-centric language versus provider-centric language. Let me explain what this means. A lot of times, service providers unintentionally make it all about themselves, when the focus should really be on the customer's needs. So the key is to structure your sentence to focus on the customer's needs and not your own. That will make a big difference in your communication. The next step is to reflect their sense of urgency to show that you're committed to helping them quickly. And finally, offer assistance and support rather than just telling the customer what they have to do. Let's look at some examples that illustrate these points. For example, saying, "I'll have that ready for you as soon as I get a chance." That may sound like your schedule is the priority and not your customer's needs. A more customer-centric approach would be to say, "I'll take care of that for you right away." Do you see the difference? Here's another one. Another common example is requesting information, saying, "I need you to complete this application form." That comes across as self-serving. Instead, try saying, "To make sure that we have all the necessary information to help you, could you please fill out this application form?" It's a subtle difference, but it makes a big difference in how the customer perceives your message. Here's another great way to show the customer that you're committed to helping them, and that's by using positive and action-oriented I and we statements. So instead of saying something vague like, "I'll do my best," you can say, "I'll handle this personally for you." That sounds so much more reassuring and proactive to the customer. It shows them that you're taking full responsibility and that you've got the confidence and the skills to get the job done. On the other hand, saying, "I'll do my best," that might sound a bit vague and lack certainty. It suggests that you might try, but it doesn't leave the customer feeling certain about the outcome. Now, we statements work in the same way. Instead of saying, "We'll try," you can say, "We'll get this fixed for you," or "We'll look into this for you." It positions you and the customer as a team working side by side. And when you say "we'll try," that implies effort without assurance, which might not instill confidence in the customer. So by using these types of statements, you're not just providing information, you're building trust, and you're showing the customer that you're on the same team. These are action-focused statements that can turn a potentially frustrating situation into a positive experience for both you and the customer. Now, the third tip I have for you is to choose words that show enthusiasm and appreciation. When you do this, your language becomes more enthusiastic, it shows gratitude, and can really improve the customer's experience. The key is to use upbeat, positive language. Phrases like, "I'm happy to help you with that," or "Thank you for reaching out today," or "That's a great question." These may seem like small gestures, but they can make the customer feel genuinely valued and cared for. So when you lead with that kind of positivity and enthusiasm, it creates a warmer, more personable tone. The customer gets the sense that you're not just going through the motions, but that you truly are there to help and that you're happy to assist them. They will feel like they're talking to a good friend, and you'll notice that the customer becomes a lot more receptive to what you have to say and willing to provide you with information that you need to find a solution for them. All right, now it's time for your action plan. The next time that you're interacting with customers, remember the following tips we covered. First, ensure that you're using customer-centric language. Make it all about the customer. Use language that shows their needs are your top priority and not your own. Next, use positive and action-focused I and we statements. These make you sound more confident and shows the customer you're working together. And tip number 3, remember to be genuinely friendly, positive, and to show gratitude to make the customer feel valued. If you do these 3 simple steps, your customers will have a great experience. They'll feel heard, supported, and like they're talking to someone who's really happy to help them. There are certain words and phrases that can lead to trouble in customer service, especially if they're not used carefully. So being aware of these potential landmines and knowing how to rephrase them in a more constructive way will help you provide a more positive customer experience. So in this lecture, we're going to cover which common phrases damage the customer's relationships and what you can do to rephrase them. Now let's take a look at some common expressions that you want to avoid and what you can say instead. You don't understand, or you don't see my point. Have you heard this before? This immediately puts the customer on the defensive and implies that they're not intelligent or not capable enough of understanding the issue. A better approach would be to say, "Let me explain what I mean, and please let me know if you have any questions." It's the same point, but the way you say it can make a big difference. And there are phrases like, "I can't," "I don't know," "That's not my job." This instantly shuts down the conversation and makes the customer feel like their needs cannot be met. So turn these statements into more positive sentences about what you can do, in fact, to help them. So something like this: "Let me find out for you," or "I'll check with my team and follow up with you by noon." They sound more proactive and more action-oriented. And finally, profanity and vulgar language are a hard no in customer service. These should be completely off the table when you're interacting with customers. And I'm not going to give you examples of vulgar words to avoid because you already know them and you know which ones you should not be saying to your customers. So to sum up this lecture, avoid phrases that put customers on the defensive, like "you didn't understand." Instead, explain your point and invite questions. You can also replace negative statements like "I can't" with proactive alternatives like "let me find out for you." And lastly, refrain from using profanity and vulgar language in any customer interaction. Saying the word "you" doesn't seem like a big deal, but in fact, it can have a negative impact if you're using it as an accusatory statement. Let me explain what I mean. Accusatory "you" statements will immediately make the customer feel like they're being scolded or accused of doing something wrong. And even if that statement is 100% true, the way it's phrased makes customers feel that you're pointing the finger at them and blaming them. And we definitely want to avoid doing that. So let's walk through a few examples. "You didn't provide all the required information." You can reframe this to say, "It looks like we're missing a few details here. Could you please take a look and fill in any blank sections?" This removes the accusatory "you" statement and turns it into a neutral observation that invites the customer to collaborate on a solution. You see how this works? Here's another example. "You didn't understand." You can reframe this to say, "Let me explain that part again, and please let me know if you have any other questions." This avoids directly stating that the customer didn't understand, and instead it offers them helpful clarification in a very supportive way. So instead of accusing the customer, focus on what you can do to really help them and to make them feel good about your interaction. Have you ever talked to someone and just felt that instant connection, like you were on the same wavelength or on the same page? A big part of this is often due to mirroring and matching. Mirroring and matching is all about subtly adapting your own communication style to match the other person's communication. This helps you click with them on a deeper level and also makes them feel truly understood. Here's how it works. If the customer is speaking in a calm and quiet tone, you'd want to match that by also speaking slowly and softly. Versus if they're more animated and louder, you want to mirror that energy with your voice. Now also pay attention to your word choice, the specific words, phrases, and sentence structures that the customer is using. Then you could incorporate some of that language into your responses and communication. And this shows that you're really listening and understanding how they communicate. And there's also pacing and rhythm. For example, you'll want to match the customer's rhythm, their pace, and their energy level. So if they're quick and enthusiastic, you can mirror that. Or if they're more methodical and measured, you can adapt your speech to match theirs. Let me give you an example of how you can use mirroring and matching to match your customer's language. So for example, if the customer says, "I'm just totally stuck on this," you could use their words. You could say, "I'm sorry you're feeling stuck. Let me take a look and see how I can help you find a solution." Mirroring is something that we often do naturally in everyday conversations, but by being intentional about it, it can be especially powerful in customer service interactions. So your action plan for this lesson is to listen to the customer and naturally try to match their tone or their choice of language and their pacing and rhythm just to build that quick rapport. And the key is to make it feel natural, not forced. So when you're doing this right, it helps the customer feel that instant sense of connection. They'll truly feel like you get them and that you understand their needs. The science behind customer expectations is really interesting. It combines insights from psychology, neuroscience, and behavioral economics. When customers' expectations are met or exceeded, it activates the brain's reward centers, which triggers the release of dopamine. And that's the feel-good hormone in the brain that's associated with pleasure and reinforces positive feelings. So when customers have a great experience, their brain remembers that feeling and makes them want to come back for more of that positive experience. On the other hand, when you don't meet customer expectations, that can really lead to disappointment and all kinds of negative emotions because the brain processes them as a form of psychological pain. So it's your job to make sure that you set clear and realistic expectations from the very beginning. We want to be honest about what we can deliver and when we can deliver it. So in this module, I'm going to share a number of effective strategies that will help you achieve this. We're going to cover how to manage customer expectations and do this proactively, just so you can prevent problems before they become real issues. Then we'll talk about effective strategies for setting clear and realistic expectations. And you'll also learn what you can do to not only meet, but also exceed your customers' expectations. So as you can see, we have lots of learning ahead of us. So let's get started. One of the best ways to decrease the number of customer complaints is, well, not to have problems in the first place. The key to staying ahead of customer expectations is anticipating and addressing potential problems before they even arise. Start by looking for anything that could go wrong and upset customers, like product issues, delivery delays, or maybe communication breakdowns. By identifying these risks ahead of time, you can develop plans to proactively prevent them and reduce them. Then, if an issue does happen, don't wait for customers to notice and complain. Reach out to them right away, explain the situation, and let them know exactly how you're working to resolve it. Being upfront and transparent helps customers feel supported even when things don't go perfectly. They will still appreciate you taking the time and taking the initiative to get in front of the problem instead of leaving them in the dark. So for example, if you know that your website will be going down for a scheduled maintenance, it is important to communicate this with your customers. Start by assessing the impact. When will the work happen? How long will it last? And how might it disrupt the customer's access? With that information, you can then develop a plan. Well before the downtime, you can clearly communicate the details across your website, your email, social media, explain why the maintenance is necessary, when it will start and end, and what options the customers have in the meantime. Perhaps there is a temporary link they can use, or maybe there's another way they could reach out to support through another channel. So by being transparent and giving them advance notice, you will minimize customer frustration. So your action plan is to think ahead to solve problems before they become problems and before they upset your customers. Keep customers in the loop if something goes wrong and let them know how you're going to fix it. And be upfront about any changes or issues to avoid unwelcome surprises. This will keep your customers happy. Customers get upset when they feel let down because their needs or expectations haven't been met. This could happen if a company doesn't keep its promises, or maybe it doesn't communicate clearly, or it delivers poor quality service or products. So it's important to know how to manage customer expectations to keep them happy. Here's a quick question. When someone tells you, "I'll follow up soon," when do you think they're actually going to contact you? In 5 minutes? In 2 hours? In 2 days? Who knows? Soon means different things for different people. This is why it's important to avoid ambiguous or vague terms when you're communicating timelines and when you're talking about expectations. What you can do instead is use specific language to convey the details. So for example, instead of saying, "I'll be in touch soon," provide a specific time frame, such as, "I'll send you an email follow-up by noon today." By being clear and specific about timelines and expectations, you can avoid confusion and also ensure that both you and your customer are on the same page. So your action step is to use specific language to avoid confusion and to ensure clarity when you're discussing timelines and expectations. Be specific, be honest, and be transparent. Those are key to clear communication and building trust with customers. Picture this: you're a customer who just placed an order online, or you signed up for a service, or requested information. You're feeling good about your decision, and you can't wait for the next step. But then there's a little voice in your head that starts wondering, when will I actually get what I'm expecting? Or how long will this take? Or why aren't they answering me? That's where the way we communicate comes into play. If you want to set realistic expectations for your customers, you should avoid using absolute words when you're talking with them. So what are absolute words? Words such as always, never, or guaranteed. Don't use these when you're talking about expectations. Instead, use words like usually, generally, or typically. Now, let me explain why. For example, instead of saying, "Orders always arrive within 3 business days," it's better to say, "Orders usually arrive within 3 business days." Using the words usually instead of always acknowledges that there can be changes and unexpected situations. This also demonstrates honesty and sets a more realistic expectation for your customers. On that note, I want to add that some organizations may choose to make specific guarantees as part of their brand promise, like Amazon Prime with a 2-day delivery guaranteed. It's what makes their offer so appealing to their customers, and that's what makes them competitive. In that case, it's great to highlight the guarantee as long as you have a carefully planned process and the right resources in place to consistently meet those commitments. Okay, now it's time for the action plan. So to wrap up, the words you use when you're talking to customers are super important. You need to be careful to set realistic expectations to build trust. So your action plan is to steer clear of absolute terms like always or guaranteed and never, and use more balanced language like usually, typically, generally. This way, you can be honest, but without overpromising, and still leave some room for the unexpected. As a service professional, you have a wealth of knowledge and expertise that you bring to the table. But here's the thing, your customers may not have the same knowledge of your industry, your products, or processes. So if you're not careful, you can accidentally use language that ends up confusing or frustrating people that you're actually trying to help. And that's the last thing that we want, right? This is why you need to make sure that your communication is clear, accessible, and easy to understand for your customers. So to do this, you'll need to avoid the following. Industry jargon. These are terms that only people in your industry understand. So instead, you can break down complex terms or phrases into simpler, more understandable language. You'll also want to avoid overly technical terms and instead use simple language that's easier for non-experts to understand. Avoid acronyms or abbreviations. Some common examples are FAQ, which is frequently asked questions, or CEO, Chief Executive Officer. Avoid acronyms and abbreviations that you use in your industry. And lastly, avoid overly formal language. Your customer wants to feel like they're interacting with a human, not with a robot. So be natural and be yourself. You don't need to use super fancy language to sound like a scholar. That'll just annoy your customers and it'll come off sounding less authentic. Let's look at a specific scenario. Imagine your internet is not working and you call customer support and get this kind of explanation. There's packet loss and bandwidth congestion on your local loop, causing high latency and jitter. We'll need to run some tests on the DSLAM and check the SNR levels. Unless you're a tech expert, this statement will sound like a foreign language to you. What it actually means is, it looks like there's a problem with the internet connection between your home and our network, which is causing the internet to cut out. We'll need to run some tests to see what's causing the problem. Ah, okay, much better. See the difference? The second version uses plain, straightforward language that the average person would understand. So you don't need to try to dumb things down for your customers. Your customer will know if you're being condescending. All you have to do is translate complex ideas into everyday words while keeping the full details. This way, customer will be informed, but not talked down to. Here's a fun trick. It's called the grammar test. The grammar test is a simple way to check if your communication is clear and easy to understand. This trick will help you make sure that you're not using too much jargon or technical language that might confuse your customers. So to pass this test, imagine you're talking to your grandma or someone who may be far removed from the work that you do. This could be your grandpa, your uncle, your mother-in-law, doesn't matter. The idea is to keep your explanation clear and simple. Even if it's someone who doesn't know much about your field, they should still be able to understand what you're saying. If they don't, then it's a sign that you need to simplify your language. Having said that, I do encourage you to use your common sense, use your judgment. So depending on who you're talking to, you might need to customize your message. For this, consider the recipient's level of knowledge, and then you can customize according to that. It's time for the action plan. Whether you're writing an email, talking on the phone, or if you're chatting with a customer, avoid fancy language, avoid acronyms, complex technical terms, and industry jargon, and run it through the grammar test to make sure that your messaging is easy to understand. Your customers will appreciate it when your communication is clear and easy to understand. Did you know that under-promising and over-delivering is a technique that dates back to ancient times? It's true. In fact, the famous Roman poet Ovid once wrote, "Let your performance exceed your promise." That's 20 centuries ago, and this still makes sense today. It's better to under-promise and over-deliver. So when you're communicating timelines to your customers, they often see the best case scenario. Like if you say, "I'll get it done in 3 to 5 days," the customer is going to hear, "Awesome, 3 days it is." The customer will hear the best case scenario, 3 days instead of 5 days. But then if something unexpected comes up and you're not done by day 3, they start getting antsy and wondering, "Wait, what's up? I thought you said 3 days." This is why it's better to be more conservative with your estimate and say your project will be completed within 5 days. That way, you've got a bit of wiggle room for any hiccups along the way. And if you're done in 3 days, great. The customer will feel like you exceeded their expectations. It's a great trick. So for your action plan, remember the wise words of Ovid. Let your performance exceed your promise. Whenever you're making promises, or if you're setting expectations, or even communicating timelines, always under-promise and over-deliver to exceed customer expectations. Have you ever found yourself in a conversation only to realize that you have no idea what the other person just said? It's a common experience that highlights the difference between hearing, and active listening. When you're talking to someone and realize that they haven't really been listening, it's pretty frustrating, right? Well, it's similar to how customers feel when they believe that they're not being truly heard. Hearing is a passive process. It's simply the act of perceiving sound. So when you hear someone speak, your ears pick up the vibrations, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're processing or even understanding the message. Active listening, on the other hand, is a completely different approach. It involves making a conscious effort to not only hear the words, but also to understand the complete message that's being communicated by the customer. Research has shown that we only remember about 25 to 50% of what we hear. Surprisingly, 96% of people believe that they're good listeners. So this raises the question, do we actually need to learn how to listen? My biased answer is yes, because when we don't listen carefully, we miss out on a lot of information. The other 50 to 75% just goes out in one ear and out the other. And this can lead to misunderstandings and escalations in customer service. Active listening requires giving your customer your full attention, which in return makes them feel valued and heard. By actively listening, you can gather important information about the customer's needs, put yourself in your customer's shoes, and find solutions that truly benefit them. In this module, we'll cover how to be a great listener using empathy and different active listening techniques. You will learn how to make customers feel heard and understood, and how to ask great questions so you can provide better solutions. This is one of my favorite topics in this course because it's absolutely essential for your success, for anyone really. So if you're ready to get started, I'll see you in the next lecture. Larry King was a famous American TV and radio host who interviewed over 50,000 celebrities and leaders worldwide. One of his most powerful quotes is, "I remind myself every morning, nothing I say this day will teach me anything. So if I'm going to learn, I must do it by listening." Isn't that smart? Larry King understood the true value of listening. That's what today's lesson is all about, how to be a great active listener. And in order to do this, you need to eliminate all external and internal distractions within your control. Now, let's start with external distractions. To create an environment that allows you to be a great active listener, you can find a quiet space, or you can use noise-canceling headphones. You can silence notifications on your devices and avoid multitasking during customer interactions. Now, let's talk about internal distractions. These are things like your mind wandering off to think about your to-do list, or you're daydreaming about something that you're going to have for lunch, or maybe you're worried about a mistake that you made earlier, or stressed out about what to say next to your customer. These are all internal distractions. Sometimes you can catch yourself judging the customer or maybe making assumptions about them. These are all internal distractions that can really prevent you from being a good active listener. So it's really important to become aware of these things and do your best to avoid them. Try reminding yourself to focus on what the customer is saying. Give them your full attention rather than thinking about what you're going to say next, what you're going to have for lunch, and those other things. Fight the urge to interrupt them or finish their sentences. A good trick is to count to 2 before responding, just to make sure that you're not accidentally talking over the customer. And if you need to, jot down quick notes so you don't forget any important points that I mentioned. And now it's time for the action plan. Here's a challenge for you. Next time you're chatting with a customer or a colleague, try being an active listener and cutting out those external and internal distractions that we talked about. Some of our students shared that these tips even improved their personal relationships and made them more present in all areas of their life, not just at work. So let me know how it goes. I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever had a friend who comes to you with a problem and they're really upset about something that happened to them and they just don't know what to do about it? So you offer some great advice on how they can solve the problem. They nod and say yes, but in the end, they don't actually do anything with your advice. It's both frustrating and mind-boggling, isn't it? Well, there's a reason for this. Psychologists ran a number of experiments where they gave people advice on different topics. In some cases, the person giving the advice showed empathy first and really listened to the person they were helping before they gave a solution. Next, the person giving advice jumped straight to the solution without first empathizing. Can you guess what happened? Well, you can probably guess the result. People were much more likely to follow the advice when it came from someone who was empathetic and made them feel heard and understood first, versus someone who jumped straight to the solution. It's fascinating, isn't it? This is really important to keep in mind when you're dealing with customers. When customers feel like you're really listening to them and understanding how they feel, they'll be more open to what you have to say and the solutions you offer. Versus if you jump straight to the solution, it might be harder to get the customer on board. This requires putting yourself in the customer's shoes. For example, how would you feel in their spot? What would you be thinking? So by considering their perspective, you can have a better understanding of their emotions and their frame of mind. You can empathize with the customers by first acknowledging their feelings and then validating their experience. Acknowledging their emotion means naming or identifying how they feel. So for example, you might say, I understand this must be really frustrating, or I can see how disappointing the situation is for you. So by naming their emotion, you're showing that you're truly listening and you're understanding how they feel. Next, validating their experience means showing that their feelings are valid and justified given the situation. You can do this by saying something like this. I completely understand why you're feeling frustrated. I would feel the same way in your position. Or, it's understandable that you're disappointed. This isn't the experience we want for our customers. By validating their experience, you're showing that you're on their side and that their feelings matter to you. And you're not judging, but rather acknowledging that they have every right to feel the way that they do. And here's a quick tip. Make sure that you're not dismissing or minimizing their emotions. Avoid phrases such as, it's not that big of a deal, or I don't know why you're getting so upset about this. Or here's another one. There's no point in getting angry. These will have the opposite effect. The customer will think that, well, you don't take them seriously and get even more upset. So your action plan for this lesson is to listen to the customer, empathize with their feelings, and validate their experience. Avoid jumping to conclusions and don't dismiss their emotions. When you do this, you will see how much easier it will be to build rapport and communicate with the customer. You know that old saying you often hear teachers say in school, there's no such thing as a bad question? Well, when it comes to asking your customers questions, that's not always true. The way you phrase your questions can make a big difference in how the customer feels and how they respond to you. So asking the wrong questions or asking them in the wrong way can actually make the situation worse. So in this lecture, we'll cover a few strategies for forming great questions. The first strategy is eliminating why questions, and the second one is asking open-ended questions to get more information. Why, you might ask, should we stop asking why questions when why is such a common question word? Ooh, even just saying that sentence hurt my brain. Why questions can sound accusatory or confrontational, even if that's not your intent. So, for example, why did you do that? Or why are you upset about this? Asking why questions might make the customer feel defensive or like they have to justify their actions or their feelings. Instead, try to ask positively phrased questions that encourage the customer to share more information. To do that, you can replace why questions with what or how questions. Let me give you an example. Instead of saying, why did you purchase this product? You can try asking, what features were you looking for? Or instead of, why do you want to cancel your membership? You can say, what is the reason you'd like to cancel your membership? Simply removing the why removes the awkwardness and shifts the focus to gathering more information that can help you resolve the issue. What and how questions will get you the information you need without making the customer feel like they're being interrogated or blamed for something that they did. And here's tip number 2, to ask open-ended questions. Closed-ended questions will get you a yes or no answer, while open-ended questions encourage the customer to open up and share more details. Here's an example. Instead of asking, "Is the product broken?" you can ask, "Can you tell me more about the issue that you're experiencing?" Do you see the difference? Or here's another example. Imagine you're a personal trainer and you can ask, "Are you trying to lose weight?" You should be asking, "What are you hoping to achieve with our training?" When you ask open-ended questions, you encourage the customer to provide more information, to share their concerns, and to give useful context so you can provide better solutions. Plus, this way, you avoid making assumptions, like in the case of customer wanting to lose weight, and instead, you learn about what the customer actually wants or needs and let them do the talking. Asking why questions can make customers defensive. Instead, use what and how questions, and you can also ask open-ended questions to focus on the customer's experience, to understand their perspective, and to encourage them to share their details. The goal is to create a comfortable dialogue, not an interrogation. So frame your questions in a positive way to build rapport and trust with your customers. Paraphrasing or summarizing what the customer said is a really great technique that can help you make sure that you fully understood what the customer is telling you. This technique helps you recap the main points of your conversation and confirm your understanding to avoid misinterpretations. Now, let's look at how it works in more detail. So paraphrasing is when you repeat back what the customer said by using your own words. This shows them that you are really listening and that you are trying to understand their situation. It also gives you a chance to make sure that you got it right and lets the customer correct you if there's a need for that. So for instance, imagine the customer tells you, "Whenever I try logging into my account, I keep getting an error message. But when I attempt to reset my password, I don't receive an email with instructions to do it." You listen to what the customer said, and once they're done, you rephrase it in your own words. So just to clarify, when you try to log in, you're getting your error message, and when you attempt to reset your password, you're not able to see the reset email. Is that correct? This approach does two important things. First, it shows the customer that you're paying attention, and that makes them feel really important and valued. It also confirms and clarifies the information that you need to find a solution. This is a positive strategy to ensure that you're both on the same page. Research studies show that people who regularly used this technique were seen as better communicators and had stronger and more positive relationships with their coworkers. So your action plan is to put this technique to use. When you're talking with customers or with your colleagues, try summarizing what they said. There's no doubt that they will think that you're an excellent listener. It's a great way to build trust, improve understanding, and keep your customers really happy. When you're at work and you're facing a new problem that you've never encountered before, it can be tough. You have to make quick decisions, but there's a lot to consider. Sometimes you don't even have all the information you need or anyone else to help. Plus, you might not have the power to make all the decisions you need. Despite these challenges, you know you need to find a solution that works for your company and that also makes the customer happy. So what do you do if you don't know the answer? In this module, you will learn simple yet powerful techniques that will help you identify the root cause of the problem and also understand why a problem is happening in the first place, not just its symptoms. You will also learn how to come up with different creative solutions. You'll also learn how to analyze and compare your options so you can choose the best one. And by learning these skills, you'll become a more effective problem solver. So let's get started. Before tackling any problem, you need to know the cause. Root cause analysis is a method used to identify the main cause or causes of a problem rather than just addressing its symptoms. For example, let's say you go to a dentist with a toothache and they look at you and say, "All right, we're going to pull out that tooth," without even looking at your mouth. What if it's just a simple cavity? What if it's just a case of sensitive gums? Pulling out the tooth might be a bit of an overreaction, don't you think? Well, the same applies to customer service. You need to understand the root cause before coming up with a solution. This technique involves asking yourself why multiple times to dig deeper into the issue until you uncover the underlying cause. This process helps to ensure that any solutions that you implement address the root cause and not just the surface issue. So this leads to more effective problem resolution, and it also helps you prevent the problem from happening over and over again. So let me give you an example. Imagine a customer contacts support because they're receiving error messages when they're trying to make a purchase on a website. Instead of giving solutions, tech support uses root cause analysis, or we also say RCA, to understand the underlying cause of the problem. They can ask themselves why questions until they understand the origin of the problem. Why is the customer receiving error messages? That could be one thing. The discovery might be that the payment gateway is rejecting the transaction. They could ask another question. The second question might be, why is the payment gateway rejecting the transaction? And they might discover that the customer's credit card has expired. So this will lead them to the next question. Why has the customer's credit card expired? And they will discover that the customer forgot to update their credit card information on their website. Again, let's ask why one more time. Why did the customer forget to update their information? Well, the reason is that the customer did not receive a notification to update their credit card information on the website. So by going through the process of asking why over and over again, the team can now understand the root cause and take the necessary steps to improve the customer experience. But this will also help to improve communication and operational efficiency. So addressing the root cause prevents similar issues for other customers, and that ensures a smoother checkout experience for everybody else. So as you can see, this approach saves time, resources, and it provides a more reliable service. It helps to improve the overall customer experience. So as you can see, root cause analysis is a really great technique for resolving issues and gaining more insights. The way to do it is just to keep asking yourself why multiple times until you get to the root cause of the problem. Mind mapping is a fun and highly effective visual technique for creative brainstorming. It helps you organize your thoughts, generate innovative ideas, and improve your memory. It also helps you tackle problems and break them down into more manageable parts. This is a great way to organize your thoughts. So let's walk through an example. Imagine that you're swamped with emails, a pretty common challenge in customer service, and you'd like to find ways to solve this problem. You can use a mind map to come up with different ideas and to find a solution. You can do this on a blank sheet of paper or on your computer, whatever you find easier. So we'll start with a central theme. In the center of the paper, you will draw a circle and write your main theme, improving email response time. The central theme will guide your brainstorming session and will keep your ideas focused on this specific question. Next, draw branches extending from the central circle. Think of them as branches coming from a tree. At the end of each branch, you'll need to write down smaller categories. For example, managing emails, improving communication, using different tools, maybe time management. These categories represent key ideas that will help you explore different solutions to help you improve your email response time. These subcategories can then be broken down into more specific ideas. For example, under managing emails, you could have branches for using folders and labels, maybe creating templates, setting up email filters. These are all different ways you can improve your email response time. It's important to be as specific as possible to make your ideas actionable. So this mind map helps you visualize your ideas and organize your thoughts all in one place. And once you have your ideas in front of you, it is much easier to assess potential solutions and find ways to fix the problem. Here's your action plan. The next time you're faced with a complex problem or you need to generate new ideas, challenge yourself to use a mind map. You can also play around with this, such as use different colors, images, or keywords to represent different concepts. And definitely don't worry about making it perfect. Just let your ideas flow because you're brainstorming. You'll be surprised at how effective this technique is for organizing your thoughts and sparking creativity. Let's say you have a few ideas, but you're not sure which one to choose or whether you should take action. Well, SWOT analysis is a powerful tool that can help you analyze the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats related to a decision or a problem. It's simple, easy to use, and can help in various contexts to assess different situations, to make informed decisions, and to develop strategies for success. Picture the following scenario. You and your team are thinking about switching to a new customer relationship software, a new CRM. Perhaps the current CRM software is outdated, or maybe it lacks some essential features, or maybe it's no longer meeting your needs. Conducting a SWOT analysis will help you assess your decision and analyze whether the benefits of switching outweigh the drawbacks. Let's use that situation as an example. So first, what are the strengths? The new CRM software has more features and it can be customized to fit your needs better. Great. It also works well with other systems and helps us manage data more efficiently. That's another strength. It's also easy to use, which can make us more productive. Now, let's look at the weaknesses. Well, switching to the new software means that we will need to train employees, which might slow us down at first. Then there could also be problems getting it to work with our current systems, and moving our data over might be a little bit tricky. Another weakness is that it might cost more than what we currently use. Okay, now it's time to look at the opportunities. So the new software could improve how we manage customer relationships, and it can make our customers happier. Another benefit is that it could give us better data and more insights to make smarter business decisions. It might also help us work more smoothly and get things done faster. Okay, now let's look at the threats. Well, some employees might resist switching to a new software, which could make the switch a little bit more challenging. And if we don't implement it correctly, we could actually lose data or make mistakes along the way. And another thing is, if our competitors switch to a similar software, we might lose our competitive edge. So as you can see, by doing a SWOT analysis, you can figure out if the benefits of switching to a new CRM software are worth the challenges that it might bring. So this way you can make an informed decision. Now it's time for your action plan. Next time you're facing a problem and you need to make a decision, try using SWOT analysis. You can start by identifying different factors such as strengths, the weaknesses, and also opportunities and threats. Think about things that are within your control and outside of your control. By understanding these factors, you can better address the challenges, and you can capitalize on opportunities and improve your overall decision-making process. If you've ever worked with customers, you've likely encountered challenging conversations. That's just the nature of the job. Conflicts are a natural part of working with people, but they also provide opportunities for growth and relationship building if handled well. In this module, you will learn how to take charge of situations, how to use partnership language to build rapport with customers, and also how to set clear expectations to avoid miscommunications and conflicts. Finally, we'll cover how to ensure customer satisfaction by following through and following up to make sure that customers are happy with your service and that you end things on a positive note. Now, let's dive in and start learning together. When you're faced with a customer question, a concern, or complaint, it's important to take ownership. But what exactly does that mean? How do you handle situations when it wasn't your fault, or when the question falls outside of your job responsibilities, or when you have no idea how to answer the customer's question? These are all valid concerns, so let's address them in this lecture. Take ownership even if it's not your fault. If someone else made a mistake or the issue is outside of your control, taking ownership doesn't mean that you're accepting blame or that you're admitting it was your fault. Instead, it's about empathizing with the customer, acknowledging the issue, and then taking responsibility. You are there to help, so even if you were not directly involved in the problem. Here's what you can say. I'm sorry to hear about the issue you experienced. I can see that would be frustrating. Let me look into this for you and see how we can resolve it for you as soon as possible. Here's what you can do. You can investigate the problem, collaborate with your colleagues if necessary to understand what happened, and then work with the customer to find a solution. Take ownership even if it's outside of your role or expertise. If a question falls outside of your usual responsibilities, you can still take ownership by assisting the customer in connecting them with the right person or department that will help them address their concern. Here's what you can say. I understand how important it is to get this resolved quickly. Let me connect you with our billing department who handles refunds so they can get this sorted out for you quickly. Here's what you can do. You can reach out to the appropriate department or person, introduce the customer's issue, and then facilitate a smooth handover. This way, the customer won't need to repeat themselves over and over again. So whenever possible, follow up with the customer and ensure that they were satisfied with the solution. Take ownership even when you don't have an answer. If you don't know the answer to a question, it's better to be transparent than to dance around the issue. Customers value transparency, and they also value initiative. So here's what you can say. That's a great question. Let me do some research, and I'll get back to you by noon today. Would that work for you? Here's what you can do. You can note down the customer's question, then go research the issue, follow up with the customer within the specified time frame with the information that they need. So to sum up this lesson, take ownership, even if the issue wasn't your fault, even if it's outside of your job role, or even if you don't have the answer. Assess the situation and find a way that you can help. Here's your action plan for this lesson. To take ownership of any situation that comes your way, focus on the following 3 steps. Listen actively to the customer, acknowledge their issue, and show empathy. This is step number 1. Then commit to assisting the customer in finding a solution and meeting their needs. That's step number 2. And finally, be proactive by taking the necessary steps to resolve the issue and follow up to ensure that the customer was happy with the result. By doing this, you're showing that you're proactive, that you're eager to help, and that you're there to support the customer and your team. After genuinely listening to the customer and acknowledging their perspective, it's time to address the issue. So by now, you've already completed the problem-solving module, and you now have the tools to brainstorm solutions and make decisions. With a few ideas in mind, it's time to work together with the customer to find a solution that works both for them and for your organization. So rather than suggesting only one solution, offer several options using collaborative language. This will be a lot more effective. This approach empowers the customer and it helps them feel in control and engaged in the decision-making process. So here are 3 ways that you can achieve this. First, using inclusive pronouns. Instead of saying I, you can use we to imply shared responsibility. So for example, instead of saying, I will work on this, you can say, let's find a solution for you. It doesn't mean the customer is doing the work for you. It just creates a sense of partnership and collaboration. The next thing you can do is invite participation and encourage the customer to be a part of your decision-making process. So for example, after presenting your options, you can say, what do you think? Or how would you like to proceed? This empowers the customer and makes them feel valued and in control. Another thing you can do is focus on solutions. Instead of dwelling on the problem, shift the focus to finding solutions together. For example, you could say, let's find a solution that works for both of us, or let's work together to find a good solution. Now it's time for your action plan. The next time you're working with a customer, focus on the following strategies that we covered in this lecture. Instead of saying I, use we to create a sense of partnership. Then encourage the customer to participate in the decision-making process by offering multiple options and asking them to choose what works best for them. And finally, shift the focus from the problem to finding solutions together using phrases like, let's find a solution that suits both of us. When you apply these strategies in your conversations, you'll notice how much more willing the customer is going to be to engage with you and to work together to find a solution. And that makes life easier for everybody involved. Great. You've proposed potential solutions to your customer and you work together to find an option that suits both of you. Perfect. The next step is a really important one. It's time to explain your action plan to the customer and give them a clear timeline. Think of it like planning a road trip. You're in the driver's seat and the customer is the passenger. You've got your destination, which is the solution to their problem, and now it's time to plan your route. Your passenger will want to know not only where they're going, but also how you plan to get there and when you expect to arrive. If not, they might have trouble trusting you or feel nervous about what's going to happen next. That's understandable, right? First, you'll need to explain the actions you'll take to address the customer's concerns. Break it down into simple steps, just like you would if you were explaining your route on a road trip. For example, for a product refund request, you might say, I will email you a return authorization number and instructions on how to send the product back right after our chat. Make sure to provide an exact timeline for when the customer can expect a resolution or an update. This helps to manage their expectation and also gives them a sense of progress. You could say something like this: once we receive the return, we'll process your refund and you'll receive your money back on your account within 7 business days. Finally, give them clear next steps. Let them know what they should expect to happen next and if there's anything they need to do. This could be as simple as letting them know that you'll be in touch with updates or asking them to provide additional information if necessary. In this case, you could say something like this: you'll receive an email confirmation once the refund has been processed. Okay, now it's time to put all of this together. Your challenge for this lesson is to explain your action plan to the customer. So for this, you will need to explain what you'll do to the customer to set realistic expectations, then give them an idea of when things will happen, so provide them with a clear timeline. Then tell them the next steps. Tell them what to expect if there is anything they need to do in the meantime. And that's it. Keep your customers in the loop and they will be grateful to work with you, and they will also appreciate your excellent communication skills. Imagine that you're hosting a dinner for your friends. You've planned a delicious menu, you set the table, and everyone's having a great time. But your job isn't done yet. And the same thing in customer service. It's not just about getting everything set up. It's about making sure that your guests have a fantastic experience from start to finish. You need to treat your customers as welcome guests. In fact, guestology is a term that originated from the hospitality industry, especially from Disney theme parks. It refers to the art and science of understanding and exceeding guest expectations to create exceptional experiences. And this can be done in any industry, not just in hospitality. One important aspect of providing exceptional service is following up with your customers, and that's what we're going to cover. So the same way you would check in with your guests to ensure that they're enjoying the meal and enjoying their evening, following up with customers shows that you truly care about their experience, even your interactions. If you don't do this, how would you really know that they were happy with your service or not? Or if you resolved the issue that they were dealing with? You wouldn't really know. You just need to ask. Here's a really surprising fact. For every customer who complains, there are 26 others who remain silent about their issues. So we cannot assume just because someone is quiet doesn't mean that things are all good. This is why following up will help you address any issues or concerns that the customer might have. And they will appreciate the extra effort and the personal touch. And make sure to use the customer's preferred communication channel. This could be email, a message, or a phone call. Anything can be used to follow up and check in. Here's a quick example of a follow-up email. Dear Kalia, I hope this message finds you well. I wanted to follow up on the support request you recently had regarding your order. I wanted to check in to ensure everything was resolved for you. If you have any questions or need assistance with anything else, please feel free to reach out. We are here to help. As you can see, it's brief, personalized, and it shows the customer that you care about helping them and ensuring that they're happy with your service. If the issue hasn't been resolved, take ownership and ensure that you can take care of it. You're basically asking for feedback. So regardless of whether it's positive or negative, take action and use it to grow and improve. So your action plan is to take a close look at your workflow and see is following up with customers already part of your problem resolution workflow. If not, what can you do right away to set this up? In some organizations, follow-up emails are automated using their CRM systems, and this will help them ensure that nothing slips through the cracks. If this doesn't work in your industry, you can also set up personal reminders to send manual follow-ups or to call customers to follow up. Whichever method you use, make sure that you do follow up so it sounds personalized and so you show the customer that you do truly care about their satisfaction. When dealing with upset or angry customers, it's natural to feel a surge of defensiveness or frustration, especially if you're dealing with a challenging situation. But it is important to remain calm and composed. In this module, you will learn how to manage emotions, how to be patient, calm, and professional, and then how to de-escalate upset, rude, and angry customers. We'll also talk about how to overcome common challenges such as language and cultural barriers that can often trigger misunderstandings and even escalate into bigger communication issues. Okay, are you ready? Let's get started now, and I'll see you in the next lecture. When dealing with challenging customers, it's important to remember that the customer's frustration is often directed at the situation rather than at you personally. So instead of taking their complaint as a personal attack, try to focus on the objective facts of the situation and the solutions that you can provide. Sometimes, though, it's still hard not to take their words to heart and to remain calm and professional, especially in tense situations. Let me share a strategy that can help you. I'd like to introduce you to the STOP technique. This is a powerful tool for managing difficult situations. It helps you pause, collect your thoughts, and respond thoughtfully instead of reacting impulsively. STOP technique is often used in cognitive behavioral therapy to identify and challenge unhelpful thought patterns and behaviors. Let me show you how it works. The first step is stop. When you notice a situation escalating or you feel yourself becoming agitated, the first step is to stop. This brief break allows you to disengage from reacting impulsively. And by pausing, you give yourself the opportunity to regain control of your emotions and your thoughts. You can pause before talking, sending a message, or even an email. The next step is to take a breath. After stopping, take a deep breath to calm your emotions. Deep breathing can help reduce stress and anxiety, which allows you to approach the situation with a clearer mind. It also gives you a moment to center yourself and focus on the present moment. Try the following breathing technique to regain control. You take a deep breath through your belly, and then you exhale slowly for a count of 4 or more. The trick is to make the exhalation longer than your inhalation. This activates the vagus nerve, which is part of the parasympathetic system that helps your body relax. And here's a fun fact. This is the same technique that's used by live news reporters to calm their nerves before going on air. If it works for them, it can definitely work in customer service situations. The next step is to observe. With a calmer mind, observe the situation more objectively. Try to see the other person's perspective and try to understand the reasons behind their behavior. This step can help you respond with more empathy and find common ground for resolution. And finally, proceed. After pausing, take a deep breath and observing the situation, proceed with a thoughtful response. Use your observations to guide your response. Your goal should be to de-escalate the situation and to find a positive resolution for your customer. So your action plan is to try out this technique. Stop before you engage. Stop, take a deep breath, observe, and proceed. It's an effective way to stay calm and professional when you're under pressure. Did you know that when we are stressed out, our brains go into fight or flight mode? Fight or flight is a natural response that humans and animals experience when they're faced with a perceived threat or danger. It's a built-in survival mechanism that prepares the body to either confront the threat, which is fight, or flee from it, which is flight. In this state, it's tough to think clearly and solve problems. I'm going to share 2 easy techniques that will help you stay cool, even when things get pretty hectic. There's the facial feedback hypothesis in psychology, which suggests that your facial expressions can influence your emotions. So, for instance, forcing a smile can actually make you feel happier, while frowning can trigger sadness or anger. This is why, in challenging situations, I encourage you to focus on controlling your physical movements before you can even control your emotions, such as your facial expressions, your vocal tone, your body language. This will help you regulate your emotions. So by staying calm and composed, you are sending a signal to your brain that you're in control. And this will help you diffuse the situation and also demonstrate professionalism to the customer. And here's tip number 2, hit the mental reset button. If you're in the middle of a tense conversation, visualize pressing a reset button to reset your energy and mindset to start fresh. If you want to have some fun with this, you can even get a physical button for your desk. You can get one on Amazon and just put a label on it. If you ever need to reset your energy, you can tap it and start fresh. Just remember to take out the batteries if it has any, so it doesn't start playing songs in the middle of a conversation with a customer. This can be a helpful reminder to take a moment before, during, or even in between interactions with customers to reset your energy and start fresh. So here's your action plan. Definitely give these techniques a try and see which ones you like and which ones work best for you. Focus on controlling your facial expressions, your vocal tone, and your body language, which will signal to your brain that you're in control. And finally, hit the mental reset button to reset your energy during interactions with your customers. I hope you found these techniques helpful, and I'll see you in the next lecture. When it comes to handling angry customers, it's really important to diffuse the situation as quickly as possible before it has a chance to escalate. See, when a customer is upset, they want their problem fixed right away. If you don't address it quickly, they might leave negative reviews that could potentially hurt your organization. Plus, angry customers often feel like you don't care about them, which only makes things more challenging. But if you handle the issue quickly and effectively, you can actually turn things around and transform a challenging interaction into a positive experience for both you and your customer. So to de-escalate upset customers, you can use the same framework that we covered in our earlier modules. When you take time to listen, empathize, and acknowledge customer emotions, you're taking ownership and you're empowering the customer with solutions. Let's look at an example. Imagine a customer is extremely upset because their package was delivered late. Here's how you could be assertive, but not aggressive. Imagine that your customer says, "My package was supposed to arrive yesterday and it's still not here. This is unacceptable. I needed this urgently. This is the last time I'll ever order from you." Here is how you can respond. "I'm truly sorry for the frustration this has caused. I understand how important it is to receive your package on time. Let's check the tracking information and work together to resolve this." This response acknowledges the customer's feelings and focuses on finding a solution without defending yourself or blaming anyone else. This will help you de-escalate the situation by showing empathy and a willingness to help. Notice that it's not confrontational or aggressive in any way. It uses partnership language to show that you're on their side and you're not working against them. So remember the steps that we covered throughout the course so far. Be an active listener, empathize and acknowledge customer emotions, then take ownership and empower the customer with solutions. Dealing with a customer who uses inappropriate language or who talks down to you can really test your patience. Just because you work in a customer-facing role, it doesn't mean that you have to tolerate disrespectful behavior. If you feel that the customer is being rude or aggressive, it is really important to be assertive and set healthy boundaries. In this lecture, we're going to cover 4 ways you can do this. First, by establishing your limits, then redirecting the conversation, then knowing when you should escalate the situation, or when to end the conversation. Let's talk about establishing your limits. It's important to communicate clearly that while you're there to help, you expect to be treated with respect in return. This helps to establish a more professional tone for the interaction. If a customer is being rude, you can say, "I'm sorry you're frustrated. I would like to help you resolve this, but I need to ask that you communicate respectfully so I can address your concerns." Next, you will need to redirect the conversation. Redirecting the conversation involves steering it back to the main issue at hand when a customer becomes verbally aggressive or if they go off topic. This strategy helps to keep the discussion productive and more focused on finding a solution. You can say, "I hear your frustration. Let's focus on ways we can resolve this for you as soon as possible." Next, it's important to know when to seek support. You should consider escalating the situation to a manager when you've exhausted all reasonable attempts to resolve the issue with the customer directly, and the situation requires additional support or intervention. This might include instances where the customer is being uncooperative, abusive, or when the issue is beyond your authority or ability to resolve. You could say something like this: "I understand the situation has been challenging, and I want to help get this sorted out as quickly as possible. I will need to escalate this question to my manager, who will review the details and reach out to you as soon as possible." It's also really important to know when to end the conversation. If a customer becomes verbally abusive, or if they use inappropriate language, or they refuse to engage in a constructive conversation, despite your attempts to address their concerns, it is time to end the conversation. Here's what you can say: "I understand your frustration, but if you continue to use disrespectful language, I will need to end this conversation. Can we work together to resolve this issue? Instead of abruptly ending the conversation, you're giving the customer a chance to calm down and to continue in a more constructive manner. If the behavior persists, though, you can follow through with saying something like this. I'm sorry, but I cannot continue this conversation if you don't use respectful language. I will have to end the call now. Be polite but firm to ensure that you've clearly communicated your decision to end the conversation. Remember that your safety and your well-being are essential. If you feel threatened or unsafe, it's okay to end the call and seek support from a manager or a colleague. And make sure to document the interaction. It helps to keep a record of the customer's behavior, the issue discussed, and any steps taken to resolve the situation. This documentation can be valuable for future references and can also provide a clear account of the interaction in case it needs to be escalated or in case somebody needs to review it in the future. People from different cultures may have unique ways of communicating and different expectations for customer service. When there are cultural differences, it can lead to confusion and misunderstandings, which can be frustrating for both you and your customer. Additionally, what's considered polite or normal in one culture might seem as rude or inappropriate in another. So learning how to overcome these challenges is really important for providing great customer service. And this is because we live and work in such a multicultural environment. It's important to be aware of cultural differences in communication. So avoid making assumptions based on your own cultural background, and instead be respectful of the customer's cultural norms. For instance, some cultures really value punctuality and expect fast response, while others have a more relaxed attitude towards time. In some parts of the world, 6:59 p.m. is still 6 p.m. In other parts, 6:59 means that you're 59 minutes late. So a customer from a punctual culture might feel frustrated if they are feeling there's a delay with your response. And here's another common example. In some cultures, bargaining over prices is very common. A customer might ask for a discount or try to negotiate terms, which could seem impolite or inappropriate in another culture. However, it is totally normal where they live. So understanding and just being aware of these cultural nuances will help you see things from the customer's perspective. And you might realize that they're not trying to be rude, they're simply operating within their cultural norms. This awareness will help you adjust your communication approach to be more respectful and more effective in your interactions. Of course, it's impossible to know all the intricacies of every culture. Unless you have a PhD in cultural anthropology, you wouldn't know all the expectations of every single customer from around the world. The key is to be curious, to be aware, and to be understanding of different cultural norms. This will help you improve your interactions with customers, and it will help you avoid any kinds of misunderstandings. If you're communicating with customers from diverse language backgrounds, or if you're struggling to understand different accents, this lecture will equip you with the tools and techniques that will help you navigate these obstacles and feel more confident in communication with customers. You will learn how to simplify your language for better understanding, how to speak clearly, and how to use visuals and some translation tools to communicate better and to understand your customers. Let's get started. It's time to dive in. So first is using simple language. Avoid using complex words, and also avoid idiomatic expressions or acronyms that may not be easily understood by someone who speaks another language. In other words, stick to simple, straightforward language to ensure effective communication. Tip number 2 is speak slowly and clearly. This is especially important when you're speaking on the phone, because you cannot use your hand gestures or visuals to explain what you mean. Enunciate your words clearly to avoid any confusion or misunderstandings, and take pauses between sentences to give the customer a chance to process what you're saying. The next tip is to use visuals. Whenever possible, use visuals such as pictures, diagrams. This will help you convey information or your instructions. This can be especially helpful for someone who may have difficulty understanding verbal communication, or someone who needs more visual examples to understand what steps they need to take. So for example, if you're explaining a product, include images or videos or tutorials to demonstrate its features and usage. And another tip is to use translation tools, but with caution. If you don't have someone on the team who speaks the customer's language and could help you, then there are many online translation tools that are available for free. These can help you bridge the language barrier. So if you're having trouble understanding a customer's request or question, you can use a translator app or website to assist with communication. Just be aware that these tools may not always be 100% accurate. In fact, they're not. So use it with caution. And the final tip I have for you when it comes to understanding accents, some accents may be more difficult to understand than others. So in that case, you can ask the customer to speak slowly and try to listen carefully so you understand. It may also be helpful to ask for clarification if you didn't catch a certain word or phrase. And if possible, try using chat or email instead. This can give both parties more time to process the information and to clarify important details. So what's your action plan? Well, the next time that you're interacting with your customers, remember these 5 techniques that we covered in this lecture. Remember to simplify your language, to speak clearly, use visuals whenever you can. You can also use translation tools with caution. And to help you better understand customers' accents, put things into writing. By using these tips, you'll be able to better connect with customers from different backgrounds, with people who speak different languages. These skills show respect and inclusivity, leading to happier customers and stronger work relationships. Customers' expectations for speed and responsiveness escalate every year. Businesses that don't keep up are losing customers. That's the reality of modern day service. There's a famous quote by Benjamin Franklin that goes, "Time is money." Benjamin Franklin was the founding father of the United States. In his 84 years of life, he was also an American polymath, a leading writer, a scientist, an inventor, a statesman, a diplomat, a printer, a publisher, and a political philosopher. You name it. I think it's fair to say that if anyone understood the importance of time, it was certainly Benjamin Franklin. His philosophy was that wasting time or delaying decisions is costly, and this couldn't be more true when you're dealing with customers. Think about every time that we're slow to act in customer service. We not only waste our company's time and resources, but also the customer's time. And their time is equally valuable. Nowadays, customers have a need for speed. Can you guess how many customers say speed is as important as price? 2/3 of customers actually consider speed just as important as price when they're deciding when to buy something. It just goes to show how important our fast-paced world has influenced what customers value. And that's why in this module, we're going to cover strategies that will help you stay organized, efficient, and productive so you have more time and less stress at work. Picture yourself at work and you're dealing with a pile of tasks. There are requests from customers coming in, from your colleagues and your supervisors. It can feel overwhelming at times, right? Trying to figure out what needs to be done right away, what can wait, and so on. This is where the Eisenhower matrix comes in really handy. It's named after former US President Dwight Eisenhower, who was known for his ability to prioritize tasks. This matrix helps you categorize your tasks based on 2 key factors, urgency and importance. So let's imagine 4 quadrants: urgent and important, important but not urgent, urgent but not important, and the last one is not urgent and not important. I imagine you can guess where scrolling through social media would go, right? Okay, let's talk about each one in more detail. First, we have urgent and important. This is top priority. These are tasks that require immediate action because they're both urgent and important. So for example, a customer complained that needs immediate resolution. That would fall into this category. These tasks should be tackled first to prevent any negative impact. Then we have important but not urgent. These are tasks that are important for your long-term goals, but they don't necessarily require immediate attention. So for instance, updating your customer service manual to improve your efficiency. While these tasks are not pressing, they are important to your overall success at work. So it is wise to schedule time for them. Then you have urgent but not important. Some tasks may seem urgent, but they're not important enough for you to handle personally. An example could be redirecting a customer query to a colleague who is better equipped to assist them. or maybe delegating certain tasks. This will help you free up time for more critical matters. And finally, we have not urgent and not important. These are things you want to eliminate or postpone. These are tasks that neither require immediate attention or they don't really contribute significantly to your goals. So activities like excessive email checking or attending unnecessary meetings, those would fall into this category. So it's best to either eliminate them or to postpone them to focus on more meaningful work. So your action plan is to make a list of tasks you have for this week and then categorize them based on urgency and importance. By using the Eisenhower matrix, you can gain clarity on what needs your immediate attention versus what could be prioritized for later. This helps you manage your time better, reduce stress, and ensure that you're focusing on tasks that really align with your goals and your priorities. Quick wins are small, manageable tasks or changes that can be implemented relatively easily and quickly, yet they have a noticeable impact on your work and the customer experience. These wins are all about making meaningful improvements without requiring a significant time investment. Let's talk about how they help with time management. First, they focus on important tasks. Quick wins allow us to focus on tasks that can make a big difference in a short amount of time, rather than getting bogged down in long-term projects. They also help to boost morale and motivation. By achieving quick wins, we experience a sense of accomplishment, which can also boost our morale and motivation to tackle even more challenges. Quick wins also help us work more efficiently, and they allow us to handle more tasks effectively within the same amount of time. So how do you go about identifying quick wins? We can identify quick wins by analyzing customer feedback to pinpoint common issues or areas for improvement that can be addressed quickly. So, for example, improving the language or structure of our email templates can lead to clear communication and better customer satisfaction. You can also look for processes or workflows that are inefficient or cumbersome and find ways to streamline or simplify them. For example, introducing a new tool or software that automates repetitive tasks can save us time and improve our workflow. So your action plan is to identify potential quick wins, then review customer feedback and identify common issues or areas for improvement, assess current processes and workflows for inefficiencies or bottlenecks. And by following this action plan, you can effectively identify, implement, and evaluate quick wins that will improve your efficiency, customer satisfaction, and your motivation at work. Time blocking is a pretty neat time management technique. Basically, it involves dividing your day into blocks of time, and then each block is dedicated to a specific task. This helps you focus on one thing at a time without getting distracted. Now, let's talk about why it's great for customer-facing professionals. Well, first of all, it increases your productivity. You can avoid multitasking and really focus on getting one thing done well. As a result, this boosts your productivity. Next, it's also great for your focus. By setting aside dedicated time for tasks, you can prioritize them better and really concentrate more effectively. Next, better time management. Planning your day in advance and dedicating time for each task helps you manage your time better and ensures you get important things done on time. And finally, and most important in my opinion, is reduce stress. Knowing what you need to do and when to do it can reduce feelings of overwhelm and stress. As a result, you'll feel more relaxed at work. By allocating specific time blocks for work and for personal activities, you can create a more balanced schedule and avoid burnout. So now, let's walk through how you might apply these steps to your day. First, you'll want to list out all the tasks you need to accomplish. This could include things like responding to emails, attending meetings, handling customer inquiries, and working on projects. The next step is to allocate specific time blocks. Once you have your list of tasks, you'll want to designate specific blocks of time for each one. So for example, you might decide that between 9 and 10, you will be responding to customer emails. And then 10 to 11, you'll be doing project work, and so on. It's important to prioritize tasks based on their importance and urgency. And remember to use a calendar to keep track of your time blocks. Or you could even use a planner. This will help you stay organized and ensure that you're really allocating your time effectively. And the next tip is stick to your schedule. Try to stick to your schedule as much as possible. Avoid the temptation to multitask or to switch between different projects during your designated block. This will help you stay focused and ensure that you're really making progress on each task. And my final tip for you is to review and adjust. At the end of the day or at the end of your week, take time to review your time blocks and identify what worked well and what didn't, and then make adjustments. This could involve reallocating time blocks or reprioritizing some tasks or making changes to your schedule based on whatever insights you have. So by following these steps, you can effectively manage your time better and prioritize important tasks and stay focused and provide the best service possible for your customers. I want to share a really effective time management technique that I love using, and I hope you will too. It's called batch processing. It's all about grouping similar tasks together and then tackling them in batches. And this technique goes really well with the time blocking technique that we covered earlier. This approach can seriously boost your efficiency by reducing the need to switch between different types of tasks, which can be a big productivity drain, to be honest. I learned this technique when I was taking a course on video editing. And it turns out that video editors often have to handle many different clips at the same time. They're dealing with effects, edits. All of these are really time consuming if they're not managed efficiently. So by grouping similar tasks together, like editing all the audio tracks and then color correcting different clips, video editors can work more efficiently. So this approach reduces the need to switch between different editing modes or different tools, which saves video editors a lot of time and mental effort. And the same thing in customer service. For example, let's say you're working on a report that involves multiple steps, and you need to split your work into different batches. So batch number 1 could be spending time doing research and taking notes on what customers are saying. This would involve gathering data from different sources, maybe interviewing your customers, gathering feedback, and organizing all the sources. Then batch number 2 could be creating an outline and then organizing all this information that you collected during the first stage. This will help you structure your report to make sure that it's clear and logical. Then batch number 3 could be drafting the report based on the outline that you created earlier. Here you could write down all the important points, collect your findings, and put them all together into a draft. And batch number 4 could be editing and finalizing the draft to make sure that everything is clear, concise, and that there are no mistakes. This is also the time to add any additional information or insight that you may have missed earlier. So your action plan is the following. Instead of spending your day multitasking like many of us do, or switching from one task to another, you can group similar tasks together and then tackle them in batches. So the next time you're ready to complete a project, consider breaking it down into smaller batches of related tasks. This will help you work more efficiently and maintain your focus. Did you know that around 80% of New Year's resolutions fail by February? It's a pretty eye-opening statistic. And one way to increase the likelihood of achieving goals is to set SMART goals. These are goals that are specific, means they're clearly defined and focused. They're also measurable, meaning that you can track your progress and your success. They need to be achievable, so realistic and attainable, and relevant means that they are aligned with your objectives and values. And finally, they need to be time-bound, which means they have a specific deadline or time frame. Now, let's break it down in more detail. First of all, your goal needs to be specific. A specific goal is clear and it's well-defined. So for example, if you say, I want to improve customer satisfaction, that goal is very vague. What does it really mean? A better goal would be to say, increase customer satisfaction score by 10% in the next quarter. Do you see how it's a lot more specific and easy to understand? Your goal also needs to be measurable. A measurable goal is one that allows you to track and quantify your progress. So for example, a bad goal might sound like this: respond to customer emails promptly. A better goal would be to say, respond to all customer emails within 24 hours. Now, your goal also needs to be achievable. An achievable goal is one that's realistic and attainable. So if you say, I want to resolve customer complaints instantly, well, that's not really feasible unless you have some superpowers. A better goal would be to say, reduce average complaint resolution time by 20%. So that's a lot more attainable for you. Next, your goal also needs to be relevant. So if you're setting goals for work, it needs to be relevant to your job. If you say, I want to learn a new language, well, not that that's a bad goal, but that may not be relevant to the work that you do. So for example, if you're working in a customer-facing role, a good goal might be to complete customer service training course that allows me to learn how to handle upset customers. So that one is extremely relevant to the work that you do. And finally, your goal needs to be time-bound. A time-bound goal has a specific deadline. So a bad goal might be like this: improve customer satisfaction. This is very open-ended. Does that mean you're going to do it tomorrow, next year, or maybe next century? We don't know. A better goal would be to say, achieve 90% customer satisfaction rating by the end of the quarter. Much better, right? Setting SMART goals helps you focus on goals that are specific, achievable, and that are directly related to your role, which makes you more motivated, focused, and accountable for your work. So your action plan is the following. Now it's your turn to set goals. I encourage you to practice setting SMART goals. That means making sure that your goals are specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. With SMART goals, you can improve your performance, you can grow your career, and exceed your customers' expectations. Hi there, and welcome back. I want to say a big congratulations for completing our training. That's an impressive accomplishment, so I am proud of you for sticking with it and putting in all the work. You've taken a major step towards elevating your customer service skills and boosting your career to the next level. So give yourself a well-deserved pat on the back. You've dedicated the time and effort to master these proven strategies that will help you provide better service for your customers. With each video, lesson, exercise, and quiz, you've been steadily building an arsenal of powerful skills that will serve you well in any customer-facing role. And by investing in yourself through this training, you've not only boosted your professional skills, but also your motivation, your confidence, and your job satisfaction. So as you continue with your career, remember that learning is a continuous process. So I encourage you to keep practicing, refining those skills, and never stop striving to provide exceptional service for your customers. And with a digital certificate of achievement, you now have a tangible proof of commitment to your professional growth. So I do encourage you to share it on LinkedIn, add it to your resume, or maybe even hang it up on your wall to celebrate your accomplishment. I would love to hear your feedback on the course, so please do share your experience with us. I hope you enjoyed the training, and I would love to see you in our future courses.